Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to take another look here at Bitcoin, see what's going on, of course, help you understand big picture and essentially, what might happen next. We're still in this continuation phase. We'll talk more about that here in a moment. Thank you so much again for joining me. If you're new to the channel, not a financial advisor, just love teaching people how to trade. Been trading for over 15 years, and my goal is to help you become a better, more effective trader. So hopefully you can learn something here today, of course. If you want to learn more, become a better trader with Signals, Trading Academy, and an amazing community at your back. CryptoCache.tech is the website, link in the description below. So taking a look here at Bitcoin. For starters, we're well above both moving averages. We don't really need to worry about that for now. And actually, correction, we're under the 200 still, but we're a ways away from that. It's trending at 49,000. We don't need to worry about that for now. 46,000 is the most immediate target, the place in which we want to get to, if possible. And obviously try to break. But generally speaking, I think our goal this week is 46,000 if at all possible. Now, I'll talk more about that, what I mean by that here in a moment, but generally speaking, we're looking at 50 on the RSI is considered a support level now. We've closed well above that for a couple of days in a row, so we definitely have that confirmation that we're more bullish than bearish on the 1 day. And that's extremely important to have that, okay? And even if we kind of take a big picture look here as well, we look at the monthly, we've been up over 50 on the RSI for some time. It'll probably be like that for a while. And then the weekly, we're still under, but we're coming closer to getting back to that point. So we're almost at 50 on the RSI on the weekly. So in other words, we have another week or two worth of bullish continuation. Just say we closed at 46,000 or higher. The likelihood of being back up over 50 on the RSI is very high. And that's extremely important to have that almost across the board, telling us that we are definitely on the right side of the tracks here. We have also got a MACD convergence potential forming on the weekly as well. So we could in fact see that push and momentum back upwards. Again, just some good stuff here to kind of think about. Now looking at the 4-hour chart, this is where things kind of get a little funny, but in a good way, I guess you could say. Because if we look at TD sequential, first of all, we hit a 9 recently, and we just got a reset, which is great. So the fact that it went up and came back down was really nice, actually. Even though that did stop out some trades, essentially, it's still looking very good in that regard. In other words, the continuation pattern is nice. We have this good consolidation of 12 to 24 hours at this rough approximate price point of 44,000. And that's a very, very good sign, kind of building on that foundation to help us increase from here. So again, we're not overextended anymore. We can leg up again effectively without any coincidence of potentially coming back down. All right, so that's a very good sign there. We'd like to see that. And then touching on the SMAs, we're above both moving averages, which is fantastic. We love to see that. So that's going to work as a support potentially. We do have a potential MACD divergence. In other words, we could see a divergence where the price action comes back down. This is potential. It's never truly a guarantee, but if we don't keep pushing up a little bit further, we could see that come to fruition and the price come back down. Once again, if it were to correct itself, 43,400 has reaffirmed itself as a nice strong support level. That's the immediate support. Secondary support is 41,500. We lose 41.5, we're going to have a different conversation because we'll probably be back on the other side of the tracks there, and it'll be a difficult conversation to have, of course, because we're all very happy to see the price action back on track and to see some altcoins flourishing. Not all of them, by the way. And speaking of which, just touching on this as well, Bitcoin dominance is still very high. So we got to recognize the fact that as Bitcoin dominance continues to increase, we're going to see less altcoins flourish, as I've already mentioned, because a couple of them have, right? We've seen some pretty good ones. Luna is just going crazy, of course. Harmony One's back on track. I'll cover that soon. But a lot of little things that are happening with certain altcoins, of course, but not all of them are just taking off, which you would expect when Bitcoin does better. That's not the case. Bitcoin dominance needs to recede in order for those altcoins to surge because money has to come away from Bitcoin and go into those altcoins. Price from Bitcoin doesn't necessarily have to go down, but the dominance should decrease in order to see that influx or that switch, that transition from traditional main coins, just like Bitcoin and potentially Ethereum, and then of course other altcoins as well. Now Ethereum is kind of one you want to pay attention to because Ethereum does have a tendency of taking off first to signal alt season, so be mindful of that. If we see Ethereum breaking free from Bitcoin doing crazy good, that's a good signal. That gives us an indication that alt season is on the horizon. Bitcoin dominance will probably be at a much lower point by then. Okay, so again, just keep that in mind. Nothing wrong with Bitcoin price going up and dominance going up. It's just that once we see that shift, once dominance comes down and Bitcoin stays the same or increases, then we're going to start seeing a lot more altcoins taking off. Because again, They're selling their Bitcoin pairs, they're going over to altcoins, and altcoin value goes up just kind of naturally because of it, okay? There's always these ebbs and flows you want to pay attention to, but with Bitcoin, again, here in the 4 hour, we're looking good. We're above both moving averages. We have a potential MACD divergence, so just keep in mind this overextension could eventually correct itself. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine. It's a normal thing. So, we're making higher lows, of course, at this point, still higher highs. The price comes down, just say, for example, to test. Well, that's probably too far. I don't think we're going to go that low, but say it comes down to 41.5, extremely normal. Perfect. In fact, I would say consider adding to your position. 41.5 should be a really nice DCA target. And what I mean by that, if you're not familiar, dollar cost average, adding to your position as the price goes down, essentially averaging your price up, if you will. Okay, so it's a very good thing to do. Or sorry, I misspoke. You're averaging your price down. You're essentially lowering the overall average price that you are entered in, and in turn increasing the amount of return you're going to receive when the price comes back up. Which I wouldn't say it's inevitable at this point, but it's looking very good. Again, a breach above and a close above for at least just say 2 trading days, 46,000 would be perfect. Until we get there, I would not be upset with a little pullback to 41.5. That's actually kind of what I'm hoping for, so we can take another entry and ride it back up. But for now, keep in mind, we are technically overextended on the 4 hour and the MACD, but also note this too, I talked about this previously. Continuation plays can stay above 70 on the RSI for some time. In fact, let's just take a quick look at this. Roughly how long was it? So the previous time frame that the price just continued to increase, because this is looking a lot like this, right? They look pretty similar in a lot of ways. Now, if we kind of look at that and just say hypothetically they were to follow the same suit, February 4th up to the 8th, so it's a 4-day stint above 70 on the RSI. We are currently above, that's 3 trading days? So we potentially have one more trading day worth of price action above the RSI before we should expect it to come back down. Again, that's not a foolproof concept. This is just strictly based on a recent experience, but patterns that tend to repeat themselves, okay? Now, I'm not saying it's going to come up to 46,000, reject, and come back down, but I wouldn't also be surprised if that happened either, right? Because if it were to do that, it wouldn't be a terrible thing based on the fact that it's just a second test of a major key level resistance, which would be fine, because if it does that and comes back down, it just means we don't have enough strength and we need to kind of rest and relax and kind of find a lower price point to average our prices. So all in all, very good stuff here in that sense. I don't see anything terrible right now, but I would expect to see a turnaround in the near future. So be cautious taking a long leveraged position right now. Just based on the fact that it does appear to be extremely overextended on the 4 hour. Yes, we got a reset on TD sequential. It's nice. It's consolidating. We have more room for another leg up. The next 24 hours could be very strong to 46,000. But there's still that shadow of a doubt that we're overextended and that this continuation play could be slowing and losing momentum. And a lot of times what you want to do is look for volume to identify that. Now, we have a tremendous amount of volume here recently with this doji candle here. So that does tell us some really good stuff here in the fact that the price wasn't willing to go much higher than 45.4, but it also wasn't willing to come back down any lower than this Fibonacci retracement level of about 43,500. Or just say 43.4 is a round number. So if we say 43.4 and 44.5, that's basically a $1,000 range here. In that 4 hour time frame, the price jumped up, came back down, and back up again to close at the same place that it opened. That basically tells us there's a state of indecision and that the price could go either way. Okay, but the fact that there's an increased amount of volume here tells us there's a lot of buying pressure at the price point of about 43,500, if not a little bit higher. So, is it a good value at 44,000? The short answer is yes. Right now, people view it as a good value. So in that sense, RSI up over 70 doesn't matter that much, okay? All right, so I hope you understand how I explain that, because again, volume really tells us a lot. And if we look at that price point, we can see the amount of volume. In fact, why don't we just go ahead and take a quick look at the profile, just based on the last, week-ish? No, sorry, that's about a month and a week, right? So in the last 5 weeks, hypothetically, we have a tremendous amount of volume, of course, at the price point closer to 38,000. But we also have a tremendous amount of volume here, right at the price point of 44,000. That's extremely important. That's building that foundation to be able to help us leg up again. Okay. So again, we lose support of 43, 43.4, then we can expect 41.5 as the next step. If that happens, we can expect 41.5 to hold as a strong likelihood because previous data shows us 41.5 is a good strong support level, and then we should expect to bounce back up to 46. So my anticipation is the price kind of does one of these or possibly does one of these. But either way, I think we're going to test 46,000 more than just one time here in the near future. It's just kind of shaping up to look that way. All right, anyways, that's kind of where we're at. Let's go ahead and summarize here and call it a day. Volume weighted average price, we are within the standard deviation lines there, but we did branch outside. So we're kind of averaged out right where the volume profile should be as well. So I like the fact that our average price is the same as the volume. We are slightly above as well. That's good. Let's take a look at TD sequential. Nothing to note there. And Ichimoku Cloud. This is where it gets kind of interesting. This is another reason why closing your short position, closing a long position and considering a short is a potential. Now, what I mean by that is that the cloud is telling us that, hey, we intersect with our price action here. You should have closed your position. Now, we had a trailing stop loss that worked perfectly here, so we actually hit 45,000, took our profits of 17%, came back down, stopped out at the trailing stop loss to ensure we locked in those profits. That's why you always use a trailing stop loss with preferably a moving target one. That's just my opinion. That being said, this closed out and we are right now, conversion line and baseline are intersecting. Yes, we're still above the cloud, which is fantastic. That could very well work as a support level, but we have two indications here that are telling us that we need to close our position. 2 out of 3 essentially. All right, so again, not telling you to close your position because it depends on what kind of position you had open, right? We took a leverage position and a regular swing trade, spot trade rather. And in that regard, that was a perfectly fine thing. We got in at 43, hit 2 profit targets, now we're out. Comes up to 46, I wouldn't be all that frustrated because the likelihood of breaking 46 the first time is pretty low. Again, stranger things have happened in crypto, but what I'm getting at here is if you're in the profit, right, and say you took a trade down here at 38 and you're up about 15-16%, there's nothing wrong with taking profits. Maybe consider trimming some of your position. Ultimately, obviously, if this is a HODL account, don't even worry about any of this. Just know that Bitcoin is likely on the rise. We're making higher highs and higher lows on the weekly, making higher highs and higher lows on the monthly. We're still trending positively. I just wouldn't expect a parabolic increase from Bitcoin. We talked about this a lot in our roundtable yesterday. We shouldn't expect to see Bitcoin over, I would say, well, 100,000 is lofty. That's to me is too high. I think based on the way that there's a lot of market delusion, there's a lot more people getting into the market. It's diluted, so to speak. We're seeing diminished returns, and it's kind of it's averaging itself out. Not saying Bitcoin isn't going to be valuable someday, but this year we shouldn't expect 6 figures. I think it's more realistic to expect maybe 70 or 80,000 when it makes its higher high and higher low based on previous patterns from last year. Right, so it just it went from 60 to 69, or 64 to 69. We should expect somewhere in the 70 to 80,000 range, which would be perfectly fine, by the way. That's almost 2x where we're at from right here, right? Or 1.5, 1 3/4. So all good stuff there. And what I'm summarizing here is just that Bitcoin's in great shape. If it pulls back to 41.5, sky is not falling. I would expect a pullback soon, just maybe not. It may not happen for a couple of days. We may see a pullback on Friday. That's still my speculation, depending on how today closes. If we close with a doji here today, we might see a potential turnaround. So it might be advantageous, and I may consider doing this, to cover this again later today, of course, when the market closes. But just know if you see a market close and we see a doji here, similar to where the price is at right now, we may expect it to lose its tenacity, and it should and possibly could come back down. Again, see how 43.4 holds. If we close above 43.4, we're probably in pretty decent shape. But again, there's quite a few factors we got to look at, and we'll continue to look at them, of course. For now, that's pretty much all I have to say. I hope that it was descriptive enough and helpful. Just a lot of stuff you got to look at, right? And it's not just one size fits all. That's why if you look at different time frames, you extract just maybe 1 or 2 different things from each time frame, you can make a well-informed decision and kind of just stack the odds in your favor. And again, you take gambling out of the equation. This is not gambling. This is actually educated guessing, but it tends to work very well, right? I mean, I have over an 80% success rate for a reason. It's just the way that it works. And I hope that you can learn something here again. So if you're not currently a community member, link in the description below, CryptoCache.tech. Consider becoming one, because I can assure you that I always have your best interests in mind. We have an amazing community, and it's just the best experience of my life, so I can't complain. I can tell you what, a really cool group of folks there. And I do send out signals for every single trade that I take, so you can kind of share in that understanding of how to structure your trades, because a lot of times with these kind of markets, it can be very difficult to understand when to get in, when to get out. You can fully automate that if you want, but also I have a trading academy with a series of videos that teaches you how to become a better trader. So in my personal opinion, and everyone else's would agree, it's an extremely good value, and I think that you would find benefit. So look forward to getting to know you better. Thanks again for your time. We'll see you all in the next video. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.